Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan of the Leather Elves. Welcome, everyone. We have a really special program tonight. I'm excited about it, but we've got to do the reminders that we always have to do. You can like the Leather Elves on Facebook to get notifications. You can check our Facebook page to catch surprise sales and pop up events. Follow the Leather Elves on Instagram, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. So there's a lot of ways to get the information. Um, One thing I need to ask, I need some help. Carrie Ellen Lorman and I need some help. We've decided we're going to do the Rockstar Tour again next summer in 2026. So we need suggestions. We are going up Florida, up to approximately North Carolina, across through Tennessee to St. Louis, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri. My geography is really bad. Oklahoma, Texas, across the bottom on the 10. So Alabama, no, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and across the panhandle. So if you know anybody who's got a rescue along that route or even close to that route, make the suggestion. I can't guarantee that we will make it there, but we will definitely take a look at it. And the other thing I wanted to tell you guys was Pet Bird Day was Wednesday. I hope you all celebrated. If you didn't, start celebrating now because having birds in our lives is absolutely fantastic. And you want to always celebrate Pet Bird Day. Every day is Pet Bird Day. So, without further ado, my guest tonight, this is a really interesting topic for me. My guest tonight is Nelson Maldonado. I met Nelson at the American Federation of Aviculture conference. Hey, Nelson, how's it going?
Good, good.
Good. I have to read your bio, and it's in tiny print. And I forgot to bring my glasses into my office. So we're going to try this. Um, Nelson Maldonado is a dedicated aviculturist renowned for his passion for parrot conservation and innovative breeding techniques. He was born August 26th, 1969, in New York and was raised in Puerto Rico. Nelson grew up surrounded by the vibrant wildlife of the tropical rainforest, where his fascination with birds began at an early age. His first encounter with a wild sparrow sparked a lifelong commitment to understanding and preserving avian species. Nelson pursued his graduate degree in business management at the Trident University, where he focused on understanding how to develop, operate, and manage his aviary. Nelson also had a 28-plus-year military career, which allowed him to travel the world and experience aviculture in many countries, gaining hands-on experience with injured parrots. After retiring from the military in 2017, he turned his attention to citizens, inspired by their intelligence and complex social behaviors. In 2015, Nelson established his own aviary, is it Los Monos?
Yep,
Yeah,
Los
okay.
Monos Aviary.
A small but meticulous facility in rural Pennsylvania. Specializing in the breeding of cockatiels and borks, he quickly earned a reputation for his ethical approach to aviculture. Nelson implemented a naturalistic breeding environment, emphasizing proper humidity, temperature cycles, and diet, principles he adapted from his global research in companion bird care. Today, Nelson continues to run Los Monos Aviary, where he maintains a flock of over 100 parrots, including 5 new gold bork mutations. Known for his hands on approach and unwavering dedication, he remains a respected figure in aviculture, genetics, compassion, and a love for feathered companions. That's a lot,
Yeah,
but it's a
I
lot.
mean that wraps it up. Let's hang up.
We'll just be done for the night.
Yeah, we're done.
But I think, um, so I got to tell people how I met you. So Nelson approached me in my booth because Nelson is also president of it's the National Cockatiel Society, correct? Yes.
Yes.
And so he came over to my booth at AFA and we started talking. And then we kind of digressed and we started talking about um, veterans and then aviculture and the tie. And I was just blown away because it wasn't it wasn't a connection that I made. It didn't occur to me that that was there. So Nelson, can you tell people? So in your bio, it says the wild sparrow kind of sparked your interest, but how did you get started in aviculture?
That's a great question. So first of all, Robin, I want to say thank you. Thank you for having me speak this evening. It means a lot to me and it means a lot to our veterans. So, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, my journey started, and it was a spring in Union City, New Jersey. And my grandmother was the one that she always had. She was the crazy bird lady. And she was the one that would assist me in picking the sparrows up and putting them back. However, we quickly noticed that some of them weren't being raised by their parents. So I was 9 years old, and at that age, she started teaching me how to hand rear and care for the sparrows. And at 10 years old, um, I was the only one in the summer in my neighborhood with a pet squirrel because we rescued a baby squirrel that wasn't going to make it, and my grandmother taught me how to hand rear it, raise it. So the squirrel didn't know it was a squirrel. So you can imagine me as a 10-year-old, everybody walking their dogs, and I'm out there with a squirrel.
I can
So
see that.
that ignited the passion that has stayed with me. Of course, I took kind of a sabbatical while in the military, kind of, because in my presentation later, I'll talk about my experience with aviculture as a service member. But yeah, my grandmother was the one that sparked it. It's her fault. So now I am the crazy bird man.
Nice. And I'm glad you are, because everybody has that crazy bird person in their past, I think, that kind of pushed us into where we are. And so often the story starts in childhood. And I think that speaks to us as aviculturists for needing to get those young people involved, sharing the gift with younger people. And so I think that's really important. Um,
So
so,
I think I have my 4-year-old granddaughter that might be hooked. She might be the next crazy bird lady. There she is.
she's
And as a matter
beautiful.
of fact, she called me yesterday demanding that they live an hour away, demanding that she come home because she wants to inspect nest boxes.
Well, there it is. Oh, so she's beautiful. What that is awesome. It's yeah, my son was not going to pick up the bird world torch, but that's okay. He's still helping the environment, so I'm okay with it. But yeah, I mean, this is when they need to start. This is a really important. We need to do a whole nother show, Nelson, on how to involve young people. Um,
Yep, and I
but
can I could bring her into the call, and she would take at least 2 hours talking about birds and babies because she's that crazy.
well, all right, definitely on the list of future shows. So you talked about about while you were active in the service, um, kind of learning from other places. Was What a great experience that must have been.
Yeah, I had the opportunity. Again, I was on mission. I knew that being a soldier was my primary duty, but I always found and made the time to interact with the wildlife. For example, I was stationed in Panama, so observing the macaws um, eating off of a cliff, and I didn't understand at that age what were they doing. So now
Mhm.
I know that I witnessed them eating clay off of the
Yeah.
cliffs so they can get those much needed minerals. I was there, I saw that. I also lived in Korea. So I was South Korea. So I was able to visit the underground pet market, and I would see those hundreds of Congos, monkeys, and the price was very, very dirt cheap. Of
Yeah.
course, we can't bring any of that to the States. So I had in my barracks room, I had parakeets, I had cockatiels in South Korea.
Mhm.
Um, Living in Germany, I had cockatiels and got my first taste of exhibition going into a budgie show, thinking out English budgie show, thinking I was going to see a show with 200 or 300 English budgies, and I walk into that show hall and I was so confused because there was like 5 judges, there was over 1,000 English budgies, and I asked a million questions. Um, Living in Okinawa, Japan, and seeing those fruit bats fly, it was unbelievable. Living in Hawaii, I mean, it goes on and on. So I embraced the military because I found my niche. I loved it. I found a home, but I always stayed in touch with my avicultural side. So any chance I got, I would, get birds, parrots, and
Hmm.
I would, have them for a couple of years. And unfortunately, every time we came down on assignment to move someplace else and birds weren't permitted, I would have to, arrange something, and that made it challenging. And, I got in trouble a couple of times with the boss because I was, getting birds that I probably shouldn't have because we knew we were going to move. But we made it work. My wife and my family were my biggest supporters. They still are my champions. And then seeing my granddaughters love the hobby so much and support me,
Yeah.
it does mean a lot. But I did want to focus on one thing. Um, First of all, what is post traumatic stress disorder or PTSD? PTSD is that mental health condition that can develop after experiencing or witnessing a traumatic event. So I'm going to share with you guys this tonight briefly on how that affects the military, our veterans, which in my opinion, you will hear a lot of government officials say that we're a national treasure. Well, if we are a national treasure, what's coming down the pipeline is going to affect us the most. And I'll expand on that. So, disclaimer, I'm not saying tonight that only military service members have PTSD. I'm not saying tonight that all military service members have PTSD. My intent tonight is to share with you my experience with PTSD and how my flock has helped with my condition. Again, I'm no expert. I'm just telling my story. I
I
want to
let
say
me I want to interrupt you just for a second. When you say, that not all service members have PTSD and not only service members have PTSD, I worked with a population that was, there were a lot of mental health issues. And I can tell you that the connections that are made in with birds, with any kind of animals, are so strong, and so what you're discussing spills over as well into other segments of the population. So thank you.
absolutely, and I know that I have many colleagues that were first responders and they have pets. I have colleagues that are in education and they have pets. So there is, in my opinion, a connection between coping with PTSD and having pets. So we all have pets and maybe in some shape, way, or form, but I would expand on, us crazy bird people because that's where I found, the connection the most. When I saw you guys at the conference, sometimes we can be introverts, but it's amazing when you get a group of us that share a passion and
Mhm.
how we geek out and can
Oh yeah.
talk for hours. And then, my wife would say, I used to preach to her that I was an introvert. And she'll tell me, she said, no, you're not. You're not an introvert. I see you with your bird people. But it's just the connection. We share a commitment, a passion, and therefore connecting with bird people is easy.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm going to say 22 per day. I'm going to say 22 per day, and I'm not going to say it again towards the end because when I conclude, I want to expand on that 22 per day. And for the viewers, I may have triggered a response because they might have already experience with 22 per day. So I already told you how I got involved. I just absolutely love birds. I have borks that it sounds funny when I say it, but they don't exist anywhere in the world, and that's nerve-wracking because now the responsibility to establish them properly is on my lap. But I quickly found that I'm not alone. I have many friends and colleagues that either mentor, coach, whether it be explaining to me how to line breed responsibly, or explaining to me how to outcross, or explaining to me how important it is to breed normals. And in my opinion, normals of any bird species are the new rare. So let me see what else I have. So birds have taught me to stay in the moment. You know, PTSD is a real concern. I mean, there's times where I get up and I'm weighted down, and these interactions with my birds, they help me practice a sense of normality. They keep me busy.
Mhm.
So I'm probably preaching to the choir when I say I go to bed and I sometimes feel those nightmares coming, and I can quickly identify them and turn around and say, tomorrow I have eggs to check that may have hatched, or tomorrow I have some pairs I want to try and set up, or tomorrow I just want to showbox train. I want to put those nobodies in a showbox to see if they demonstrate that they want to be somebody. So those events have gotten me through post traumatic stress. And that is a horrible thing. And I have some colleagues that are struggling much more than I am. And this is why I wanted, I saw the opportunity where I can speak to you guys, whether it be at the AFA conference, whether it be at Parrot Fest, whether it be at a bird club in California. I'm going to jump on that opportunity every time I can because I think, in my opinion, we're missing the mark. We're focusing on the ability to not have pets and we're beating that horse up, but we're not focusing on what it means for some of us. And if you look at our population that suffers from PTSD and what the pets and the birds do for us is very serious. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm very grateful to be able to sit here and share my story with you guys. Um, but I'm not saying that everybody should have birds. That could be a different topic. And that's how I die right there. That's how I die. I see that sign, free hugs and free birds, and like a dummy, I'm gonna go in there and go for them, and you guys will never hear from me again.
So when Nelson
But
goes missing, we know this is where we have to go.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, it could be a very creepy van that that van is suspect, and if
yeah.
the van puts free birds and opens the door, I'm gonna go running like an idiot because
Is it
that's what birds mean to me.
is there any particular kind we should watch out for? Do you have a favorite?
My passion's always been cockatiels, and I think it'll always be cockatiels. Now, do I like big birds? Once upon a time, I've had hawks. I think you have a couple of pictures of me holding a falcon. This one's
Nice.
not mine. This was an event I attended. But the interesting thing about that photo, and I'm glad they didn't take the photo, or maybe they did and I don't have it. Well, the owner asked me, Nelson, do you want to feed him? And I'm like, sure, I'll feed him. and he gave me a little frozen chick. So, animals have to eat, circle of life, and all that. But the falcon, while holding it, you see the falcon's perched on my hand. And while he's perched, he grabbed the chick with the other one and proceeded to crack his skull open like a peanut and eat the brain matter. And it landed on my finger. And I told the guy, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I think you can take him back. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I absolutely love all birds. But I realized that with my PTSD after I started transitioning out of the military, that the loud screaming birds were
Yeah.
triggering a negative reaction in me.
Yeah.
So therefore, the wife and family reminded me really quickly, hey, you're done with the big birds, no more macaws, no more cockatoos. So the biggest that I have is cockatiels and hooded parrots, and then everything else is smaller, like English budgies, lovebirds, borks, of course, and canaries.
Yeah. So, so that, I mean, and that's a factor too that people need to consider when making this connection with aviculture is that the noise level is not always conducive to someone who's struggling. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so through, you mentioned the human connection with aviculture too. I think so. It's a matter of making that initial connection with birds, and then from that, like at the conference, I mean, I never would have, I probably wouldn't have run into you unless I was at a show, a bird show. But there's that comfort zone, that willingness to talk to someone, which I think if someone is struggling, correct me if I'm wrong, that might be something that would be helpful.
Oh my God,
You know.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what helps? And I think you nailed it when you said about, our passion, of course, is with our birds.
Mhm.
But I think when we pursue that passion and meet people with that common interest, all of a sudden, now we're making connections with human. And now, like they say, misery loves company. And I love my bird people. So, do I find it easier to talk to bird people than veterans? I would say absolutely. I still have that connection with veterans because, I served and we can talk that language. But if you see me talking to my bird people, I love my bird people. And that connection has come through our birds. So I'm
Mhm.
grateful that my birds not only have helped me cope with PTSD, but they have also facilitated me having better connections and relationship with humans. And we all know how difficult humans can be. If I
Mhm.
say, show me, raise your hand if you prefer birds over humans, I would say over 90% of my bird people would raise their hand. You know,
Absolutely. I used to do a lot of work with zoos. And one of the things that I quickly realized was zookeepers, a lot of times, are in that field because they don't have to deal with people. And then when they started doing keeper talks, they were horrified because this was no, no, I went into this business so I wouldn't have to talk to people. I wouldn't have to do any one-on-one with people. And so it kind of changed the industry. But oh yeah, and I think too, I don't know, I think you've probably figured this out. You get what you give with nonverbal animals. That, I had a friend whose mom used to do a class where she raised horses, and she would bring executives, business executives in, and they would be paired with a horse, and by the end of day one, they could kind of figure out what they were doing wrong with their staff because of the reaction they got from the horses. And I absolutely think birds are the same. You get what you give.
No, absolutely. And I want to make a comment before I continue with your statement is, oh, by the way, viewers, I absolutely love all the comments that you're posting. You don't know what it means to Robin and me to see your participation with those comments. I know that we're trying not to be formal, we're trying to be a little open and silly, and to see your support with those comments, please keep it up. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely, having birds has created many opportunities for me. You know, I did not think that I thought I was going to retire from the military, establish my flock, and become a hermit crab. And trust me, that sounded so good. However, there's the exhibition piece. I was invited to exhibition. I was told, you think you have the best? Put your money where your mouth is. Come to a show, get show boxes, and put them. So you're looking at this lonely little novice in the Gloucester Society Club, and I picked up those 6 awards with those 6 Gloucester Canaries. So imagine the excitement that, not just owning birds, but celebrating the birds at these events. And then the people I met at these events that shared the common interest. So why do we get referred to as crazy bird people? I'll explain why. Because we're a small group. And when people see and hear us, how passionate we are of breeding our homemade bread mix, our cage setup, our nest boxing techniques, outside people hear that and they're like, what is wrong with them? So that's why we get tagged as crazy bird people. And I wear that title with a lot of honor because I believe that owning birds, being able to interact with them, whether it be exhibition, whether it be, saving a bird after a disaster, whether it be breeding it, it just does a lot for us human beings. And again, I'm preaching to think that there's some government officials and some states that want to take that from us. I honestly don't think that they have done an accurate study to see what the cause and effect that it may have on us crazy bird people.
Yeah. And I think, we need to educate. We need to let those legislators know. I mean, we've got some fights coming up, some big ones, and it's a matter of freedom of choice. I mean, you fought for my freedom, and I thank you for that every day. But those freedoms are being taken away. My freedom of choice. I can have my own opinion because you guys went out there and did that, you guys and girls. And I think it's a matter of explaining to the legislators that how do you how do you think you can take away my choice? My If I want to buy a bird at a pet store, that's my choice. If I choose to adopt, that's my choice. But at least I have that choice, and we need to make sure that that choice is maintained. Um, and
Absolutely. And in addition to that, I took the opportunity to be heard at AFA, when I spoke to David, US Hark, and my comments to him are the same comments I'm going to continue to preach. I think we're missing the mark. We should add to our toolkit all the aviculturists that are veterans because I looked across the AFA conference and not only I saw a bunch of veterans, but I saw spouses that were married to veterans. So I
Mhm.
speak, when I say veterans, I mean that everything that encompasses that, the family members, the spouses, they all suffer from PTSD one shape, one way or the other. So
Yeah.
to be able to leverage the impact that this is going to have on everybody, but also on veterans, I think that there may be some politicians that will change their tune, because
Mhm.
now basically they're not taking away our right to own pets. They're also kind of saying, we don't care for the veterans because this is going to impact them. We're not going to worry about that.
Mhm. They'll figure out another way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I feel that if they did go through with this, I hope that they would quickly reverse it when they realize the 22 and 1 now became 30 and 1.
So, how did you? So you made this connection because it helped you out. It gave you that reason to get up the next morning, besides your family, but the task, the something to look forward to doing. How do you get other veterans to recognize that? What's that process look like, Nelson?
Well, in my opinion, we have to do a better job of telling our story. It's not a matter of competition. My bird is better than yours. Oh, I have this and you don't. Or I won, you didn't. I think we have to humble ourselves and make those human connections, because you'd be surprised as to telling our story might be to a person that needed to hear that the birds have saved my life. And I'll say it again, the birds have saved my life. The birds have allowed my family to enjoy a normal combat veteran.
Mhm.
Again, I was at home, depressed. I was going through some horrible stuff, and my family saw that my birds were an outlet. And as soon as they saw that, they went, pursue it. Get the birds. You're retired. I don't do anything anyway because I'm retired. So why not focus on the birds? Yeah, except
Yeah.
with when my granddaughters are around. I have no time for anything.
No,
But I
that's
think that
that's
telling our
priority.
story, yeah, telling our story, whether it be with crazy bird people, whether it be crazy bird people prospects, or whether it be your kids, your grandkids, you don't think is important. But look at me now. This was this 9-year old that my grandmother took the time to introduce me to that part of life, and it has carried me through. Honestly, if I did not have that bird passion that I could tap into after my military retirement, scary, I don't know where I would be.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, I found myself on the other side of the base or other side of the fence after I retired, as
Mhm.
many veterans do, and they take on drugs, they take on alcohol, and I was struggling, and I took on birds, and it
So let
saved
me
me.
ask you this. Does so life in the service is there's a routine, right? There's a very strong routine. Does
Rigid.
the root right, okay, that was the word I was looking for. Does the routine with the birds, does that help because that kind of mirrors what your experience had been for so long?
Yeah, I mean I was a crazy young service member, out of control when I joined. If I showed you a picture, you'd swear I was 13 years old, but I was 17. And look at me now. I didn't look that way when I joined, so there's obviously a lot of scars, a lot of internal scars.
Mhm.
But as I went on this journey, I realized that there was a possibility of me finding a purpose, a sense of purpose. And that sense of purpose, whether when you're in the military, they come and inspect your wall locker and everything's got to be, dress right dress as we said it, or they open up our drawer and your socks and underwear's got to be all folded up tight. And I know some of my, veterans, if you're out there listening and you know what I'm talking about, raise your hand. And that translated now to, if you look at my aviary, I keep it as clean as possible because I know that is healthy for the animals. I keep my documentation while I'm anal with my documentation. I have my birds are banded and documented. I have labels, placards on each cage. So that right there, I'm no longer in the military, what like we used to say, shoot, move, communicate. I'm no longer shoot, moving, and communicating, but now I'm managing my aviary, and it does translate in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
Everything's clean, everything is dressed right dress, everything is labeled. I even demand that my birds act a certain way, so I don't only breed for excellence because I want them to win at shows, but I also breed for temperament. Just like some dog breeders breed for temperament, well, I like breeding happy, sociable birds.
Yeah. And that's, you can tell when you see your birds, when when you talk about how you do things. Um, Happy is a label, but I understand what you're saying, and I'm sure everybody who's listening understands. It's those birds that, for lack of a better term, are good pet quality as well. It's not. I don't see Nelson tossing out birds if they're not perfect. It's that's not how it happens at your place. But there are definitely qualities that you can see, and that's a positive impact for the bird world because if you're producing birds that are beautiful, perfect. What's the word I'm looking for? The body.
Conformation,
Thank you very much.
standard,
Yeah, so all that is there, and they're good quality companions as well.
and you
What
see
is
this
bad
one's
about that?
temperament. You see
Yeah.
that temperament right there? Somebody would say you're crazy, they're going to rip your hand off. Well, here I am battling to push this cock aside
Mhm.
because he's covering his bird, but he also realizes that I'm his father.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm pushing him aside, and you can see his mouth is full of food because he was probably
Mhm.
feeding the baby, and that to me looks like a day one cockatiel. So that's
Yeah.
the interaction that helps with my PTSD because the sense of wholeness that I get from that right there, putting my hand in and asking that dad to step aside so I can do a nest box check. So that
Mhm.
right there to some people might not mean anything, but with somebody with PTSD, that means the world. That right
Yeah.
there just made my day. And to see that, they gave me a baby. I have a baby. So that's exciting.
Mhm. And and it's that completeness, that wholeness, that give and take relationship that you have built that for someone with PTSD, sometimes those relationships are next to impossible. And so to get that kind of trust from an animal that is nonverbal, that's pretty amazing. It's yeah. Trevor said it's a nonstop training environment, and I think that's the thing. It's just pouring yourself into something you're passionate about, and not just pouring yourself in and hoping for that response, but getting that response. I think that's part of the key.
So the one question is, can you breed for temperament? Absolutely. Temperament is a behavioral thing.
Mhm.
And if you look at your birds, for example, If you're going to breed a bird that doesn't trust you, that is pretty wild, well, there's a
Mhm.
possibility that if you don't pull that chick, that chick is going to be pretty aggressive and wild. So what I do is I try to pull those babies, especially I'm mostly into exhibition. So I do let some of my babies go, but I breed for me. And that's frustrating for some people because some people for some reason think my birds are really nice and they want one. And and there's many people out there with better birds than me. However, when they see me interact, I mean, I have gotten birds from colleagues in California, in North Carolina, and the first thing they've said, "Oh my God, Nelson, please be careful. They're very, very aggressive. They're parent raised." And within 2 weeks, I post a picture of the bird perched on my finger, and they get so angry. They're like, "What did you do?" I earn and I build that trust and I build that connection. And once you do that, in my opinion, I love those out of control wild birds because I'll show people in a couple of weeks, this is the bird you gave me. And they're like, no, it's not. This should be ripping your finger off. And I said, no, this is the bird you gave me. So again, that work, it also helps us in our daily lives, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And having worked, like I said, with people with different mental challenges and some physical challenges, it's that when you, when you said the one that's going to rip your finger off is your favorite, and that's how it was for me. The toughest guy in the building who was going to take me down on the ground, and my head was probably going to end up on a wall somewhere. That was the one I wanted to work with. That was the one that I knew if I could really give them my emotions, my feelings, and know that okay, you're going to do your worst, but I'm still going to take care of you. I'm still going to trust you. And it's that ability to take some of that and share it. And that's so amazing. And to me, so therapeutic, for lack of a better word.
So when you train birds, just like you do with dogs, just like with dogs, you can breed, you know, the desired trait you're looking for. You can breed color, you can breed conformation, size. You want to breed a larger crest, you can do that. So you can also breed the temperament. You can breed a happy, friendly bird from parents that are very well connected with you, and they're going to produce hams. That's what I call them, hams. So yeah, there is a way for you to breed hams, but I think that has to be established in your aviary and your breeding program. And it's possible, in my opinion. I have done it, and I have seen dog breeders do it. It's not popular because some people will argue that that's just training or conditioning, but I've also had the other side where I've had birds, no matter what I do, as soon as I put them in a show box, beautiful birds, the judge are going to send to the back because they don't know how to behave inside of a show box. Isn't that the same as a dog in a dog show where they know how to stand on the box? They know what stance the judge is looking for. And some of them would be, I have birds that are not good breeders, but they live for showing. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. I have one cockatiel when he was showing because I had to retire him because he's maxed out with awards. But when he was showing, he would not allow that judge to walk by his show box. He would start whistling and talking and dancing because he was looking for that judge's attention. So
Mhm.
therefore, in my opinion, he knew what he was doing and he lived for showing. He really did. And to your comment, as far as the rewards of picking the one that bites or picking the one that's going to hurt you, the high that you get from being accomplished to some extent, whether they perched on your finger for a minute or whether they're sitting on your shoulder without ripping your ear off. That high, in my opinion, is contagious. And once
Mhm.
you see that and live it, you look for it.
Yeah. And, attitude is contagious too. I was just having this conversation with Melanie Allen from Hagen. We were talking about attitude is contagious, and how do you make that happen? And I think, you're getting that response from these birds that are helping with PTSD for you, maybe helping with something else, that someone's dealing with for them. And I think, people used to say, anyone who's into social work has issues themselves. Anyone who's, doing behavior modification has issues themselves. And I think it's true, but it's getting that response and it's that aha moment. And you see it happen, whether it's with an animal, whether it's with a human being, you see it happen, and there's kind of this rush that happens. It happens for me anyway. Nancy said she trains birds, and she guesses what she's learning is that birds have different temperaments naturally, and I think that's part of
So
what you're.
yeah, and I absolutely agree 100% with with Nancy. You know what I like to do the comparison is, birds, and this might be an argument, but in my opinion, birds have emotions, and they're just like people. In the morning you wake up and you're not having a good day, so you might get bitten. Doesn't mean that that bird is mean and nasty. It just might mean that that bird had a rough morning. You may have had
Mhm.
a night flight and the bird didn't get any sleep because that Bork baby decided to fledge at night, and that cockatiel did not have a good sleep. So in the morning you go up there and say step up, and they headbutt your finger or they bite your finger. Well, don't give up, because later that afternoon or the next day when it has gotten proper sleep, it's now wanting to kiss you, wanting to get on your finger. So I think, birds have emotions, and we have to
Mhm.
look at what type of day they're having. Maybe you have an issue where they're hormonal because Mother Nature is telling them it's time to breed. They want to lay an egg, or they're telling you that the bird you just put in the cage beside them, they don't like them, they're arguing, they're freaking out. So, in my opinion, you have to look at birds to some extent like you look at people. Sometimes you have people or birds that are mourning. Sometimes you have species. My borks are not morning birds. My borks are more nocturnal. So, do you want to see borks lively and out of control? Come down in the evening, because that's when the day starts for them. And that's when
Uh,
babies want to fledge. And of course, they're fledging all night and it's freaking everybody out. So the next morning, I go to the aviary and I can feel the drama. I can feel the pressure because some
mhm.
birds didn't get their sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we have these expectations, I think, too. And we don't want to make them into people. We don't want to anthropomorphize all the time. But we do have to respect that things happen. When you've got a flock of birds, things happen. And it may be there was a fight in the cage next door. It may be, that the lights flickered and that was a scary thing or whatever. But they're experiencing things, and we will probably never know exactly what those things are, that, how what happened, and they can't tell you what happened. But if you observe, and I this is so my observation skills tonight, because this is the longest stretch you and I have ever talked, is that you are very, just from what you're saying, you're very aware of what your birds are doing, how they're behaving, what's going on with them. And I think that's important. You can look at a bird and say, or watch a bird and say, okay, this one might be good with this one for temperament, because these two are very calm or very, they respond to training or whatever that trait
Or
you're training.
compatible.
Yes.
Compatible. Yeah, they may
Yeah.
be compatible. I mean, I've seen scenarios where I pulled a bird to take it to a show, and I thought that bird looked really good and it was going to win, but I also felt the vent area and it felt like it was going to lay an egg. So that awesome bird that could have done well at the show, I chose through observation to not take it and put it through the stress. Another stress is when I went to AFA, those that week I was there, I'm going to tell you this, believe it or not, my birds were stressed because my birds were looking for me. And
Mhm.
now either my wife or son were feeding the birds, and the birds were like, "Where's our master?" Or our minion. Where's our minion? And they didn't see me. So they were stressed out. And sometimes that stress results in some pairs abandoning eggs because where's Nelson? Or some birds, feeling a certain way because they had a chick and I wasn't there to celebrate it with them. I mean, I've noticed that my birds will come out when their first egg hatches, and both male and female will come out and celebrate. And that's how I know you're on eggs, but I think that celebration means something hatched. And most of the time when I open the nest box, sure enough, there's a baby in there that hatched. So
Yeah.
again, that observation, that type of connection, is what has stabilized my PTSD. It didn't cure. I'm not sitting here saying get a bird is going to cure your PTSD. I'm not saying that, but having birds have definitely normalized my mental health and has allowed me to fit in and reach out and build, increase, or grow my crazy bird people circle.
So how can people help with this? Is there anything aviculturists out there, or even just people who want to help? What can they do, Nelson?
So that's a great question. So don't do that because I don't think there's any money in that. I
It
tried
really.
it and not even my wife gave me money.
Oh,
So don't try that. However, what I will encourage you is to help me tell your story, whether it be what I shared with you tonight, whether it be what I said tonight gave you courage to tell your story without being afraid of being ostracized because you got mental health issues, stay away from me. No. I hope that you can tell my story or through me tell your story because when I started this dialogue this evening, I said 22 and 1 before we lose our pets. The reality is 22 veterans per day end their life because they cannot cope with the monsters and the stress and the depression that PTSD brings forward. So imagine if one day we are told you no longer can breed pets, you no longer can have pets. Imagine what that 22 a day is going to be. Is it going to be less than 22 a day? Or is it going to be more than 22 a day? So, the sad truth, in my opinion, I think if we lose the ability to raise birds, breed birds, and show birds, that 22 a day was going to be more like 30 or more. So, everyone out there in the government is saying this is how important our veterans are to us. We have to find a way to reduce the 22 a day that are killing themselves. We would like for it to be 10 or 0. Well, the reality is it's going to be higher. So we got to band together and put aside our differences, our issues, and band and say, look, having pets is not about exhibition, it's not about breeding, it's not about making a couple of dollars. It's about us human beings, we're social creatures and we rely on our pets to give us a holistic look on life. So help me tell the story. Tell your story. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. And know that tonight you earned a crazy bird person because I'll stand by you. I'll be willing to speak at any forum. If I have to go to the state capitol, if I have to talk to a representative, I'll slap on my uniform and I'll go in there and I'll tell my story and hopefully make them realize the importance that being able to own pets and exercise our rights is to us.
Thank you so much. And it's true that, and tonight was about veterans and PTSD, but it's more about that connection, and it's about anyone that's suffering from that. From, we never know what people are going through, what's happening inside, and so just sharing that information, sharing, and like Nelson said, being comfortable sharing, being open enough to share that story, because you never know who you're talking to. You never know what that person on the other side of the conversation is dealing with. And if you can help them to step forward and to open up and accept help, maybe that's what this is all about. So thank you so much. It was wonderful having you on. And Carrie said, see you in Massachusetts, October 21st. You doing anything on the 21st? We could use some help.
Oh my, oh my goodness. No, but listen, Robin, thank you for everything you do. To me, it was a blessing to have the opportunity to reconnect and to talk to you in AFA. And then tonight, I learned that your forum is very important. So, God bless you and what you do in this forum. And the followers, wow, you guys made me feel so welcomed. Hopefully, I gained some new crazy bird people. Hey, guys, this is the time to band together and take on these fights as a group. We don't have to fight it all by ourselves. And yeah, look forward to seeing all of you in the future. Maybe in another, maybe I'll get invited to come back.
You
Maybe I'll see
might.
you guys. Maybe I'll see you guys at Parrot Expo. Maybe I'll see you guys in a fair or a exhibition event. But please don't be a stranger. I might have a face that's unapproachable, but it's simply because of my military experience. If you approach me and I smile and open my mouth, you're gonna realize, oh man, he's a pretty cat. He's nothing.
So we will absolutely see you in St. Louis next year, right? At AFA.
Absolutely. Yes.
And and for those of you that are followers, Nelson will be back because we need to talk about that granddaughter and the birds, and then we also need to do some talking about shows and how to show birds. So you'll see a lot of Nelson on the Flock Talk if he'll agree to come back. Um, so, all right. Couple of things I need to announce real quickly. World Parrot Expo is happening next weekend in Auburn, Washington. If you are out that way, absolutely, sign up, get going. Great vendor hall. Lots going on at World Parrot Expo. The ASA. Avicultural Society of America is having their conference in Shreveport. Look at those speakers, lots of amazing speakers, and just, a full spectrum avicultural conference. And it's at Margaritaville, which could be super dangerous. Aviculture is Margaritaville. I don't know. It could get ugly, but it'll be fun no matter what. And then the last thing I wanted to remind people is you can still get that 2025 digital package for AFA for $50. You get to see Nelson, you get to see me, you get to see me doing one of my better acting experiences, and I'm going to leave it at that. So it's worth the $50. If nothing else, Nelson and I are on it. So $50, come on, you can play us over and over again. at your house. So
Yeah.
sign up for that at afabirds.tv. So next
Robin,
week,
in closing, can
yes.
I offer something when you're done in closing?
Sure, give me one more second. Just I wanted to let people know there's not going to be a Flock Talk next week because Nick is going to be busy at Seattle Parrot Expo. I'm sorry, World Parrot Expo. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, and thank you, Nick, for being an IT geek. We do appreciate everything you do, and we could not do this without you.
You're very
So,
welcome,
to
and thank you for
my
your service.
thank you, and to all my veterans, my first responders, their families, and their spouses, I salute you.
Thank you.